Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a post-race analysis video following the Daytona 500. I'm going to take you through step by step what went down in the race. We're going to take a look at how my fantasy team did and the rest of the review as far as how your guys' fantasy team did. Who won this week in the league? I already know off the top of my head because I looked, but it'll be a lot of fun. And then I'll announce the winner, and you'll get to come on the predictions episode for the Daytona Road Course for next weekend. We're going to start things off, of course, with stage one at the very beginning of the race. And then by the time we get to the end, I'll give you my final thoughts on the race. I like to go in chronological order because I feel like it just sets it up more easier than talking about the finish at the beginning and then like backtracking because you might forget some things along the way because I always take notes during the course of the race. So it all started off lap 3, Derrike Cope, he blows a tire. I guess there's contact on the opening get up to speed lap with Bubba Wallace, and that tire cut down a couple laps later. Very, very weird. I didn't even think about it until like I started, going on social media and stuff and was seeing people about, it's Dale Sr.'s retribution, 20 years after the death. And it was on lap 3 when it happened. Derrike Cope obviously won the 1989 Daytona 500 because of Dale Sr., not Dale Jr., Dale Sr. blowing a tire going into turn 3, giving Derrike Cope the win, who was in second place at the time. So, yeah, crazy. Definitely. Conspiracy theorists are probably going nuts after that one. Lap 15 was the big one, pretty much. It was the biggest crash of the race. There ended up being one on the last lap, but as far as amount of cars involved, it sucks to see that many great race cars taken out at the beginning. There were a lot of favorites that were taken out in it, like Bowman, Byron, Blaney, Almirola. Of course, Byron had to drop to the rear for the start, so he was put in there just pretty much by default. And you look back at the dual race the other night when he crashed out when he probably shouldn't have been racing, towards the front, trying to protect that front row starting position. Maybe he could have been at the front because I thought that car was the best Chevy. I thought Byron's car in the duel was the best Chevy all weekend. So tough to see him start at the back, try to work his way forward, which he kind of was until that crash, unfortunately. He almost barrel rolled when he transitioned off the banking onto the apron. That car almost flipped over. I thought it was going to. My man Blaney had the wreck missed, but because of all the rain they got that morning and the day before, the dirt and the mud just tore the front of that car up, and he was out. He was never able to make another lap after the red flag lifted for rain, which immediately followed that. And then Aric Almirola, he was my pick to win. He was on my fantasy team. Blaney was on my fantasy team too, and the worst thing about that is he was the must-haves I had, so to have him get taken out by lap 15, it kind of sucks. But that's the nature of Talladega and Daytona. You can get all the facts involved, but really at the end of the day, it is really a random draw on whether or not your driver is going to make it through a wreck or not. Because for all those guys I just mentioned, it wasn't even their fault. But they were the heavy hitters, definitely, that got taken out in that crash. It all started when Christopher Bell was being pushed by Kyle Busch down the back straightaway. And honestly, this crash is really, really similar to what ended up happening at the end of the race as far as how it happened, where it was on the racetrack. It was down the back straightaway. Kyle Busch had a big run. He gave that push to his teammate, Christopher Bell, trying to get that inside line going. Again, it's only lap 15, so it's not like they're looking to pass anybody. And Bell, he just didn't hit the 10-car square enough. He didn't hit it square enough. If he would have, then 9 times out of 10, Almirola would have been able to keep control of his car. Especially at that area of the racetrack, they weren't quite into the transition of the banking in the corner yet. So, in Almirola being as good of a super speedway racer he is, I'm pretty sure he would have been able to take that push. But he did not hit him square. He kind of hit him closer to Almirola's right rear, hooked Almirola into the outside wall head-on, hard hit there, and then a bunch of hard hits going throughout the biggest crash of the day as far as total number of drivers taken out in it. By the time we finally went back green after a 5+ hour rain delay, I didn't think they were going to get the race in there for a little bit. I was trying to stay optimistic throughout, and then it got to like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, there's no word yet. But then by right around 8:30, they said they were going to get the race started at 9. I was like, thank goodness. The thing that sucked about it, and I'm kind of glad nobody came over to my house for it like we originally planned, because they would have saw 15 laps of racing. They would have saw a big crash on lap 15. Really, green flag laps racing was probably less than 10 at that point, and then they would have sat through about 2 to 3 hours of the rain delay and said, I'm going home, knowing them. So it was a good idea. Good idea, I guess, to stay home in hindsight. So That was very tough to go through for sure. I was sitting it out. It got to like 6:30, 7 o'clock. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go upstairs and start recording some some NASCAR for the YouTube channel. So you might see some more videos coming out later in the week. But yeah, I was like, this is a good opportunity to do this. I should have been doing this 2 hours ago instead of sitting here waiting for the rain to stop. We get back on to racing, and then not very long after they went back green, probably about 15, 20 laps, it was Chase Briscoe, Quinn Houff getting taken out because debris fell off the 24 car. NASCAR, what are you doing? The debris fell off, and, excuse me, the debris fell off, it hit Briscoe, and then it hit Quinn Houff, and it cut both their tires down. Now, here's the thing, though, with that, is that they could have thrown the caution when the debris came out. The debris was sitting on the track yes, it was on the apron and out of the way, out of the racing group, but it's on the track. You have to pick it up. You have to throw the caution, pick it up. If they would have threw the caution for that, then that would have saved the amount of time Briscoe had cutting his tire and Quinn Houff obviously getting taken out in that accident as well. That would have saved any of that from happening. Both those two would have still been in the race. And Houff was actually able to stay with the lead draft for those first 10 to 15 laps after the caution, so maybe he could have had a career day. Chase Briscoe, a rookie in the Cup Series. Maybe he could have had a big day with knowing that there wasn't a lot of drivers left in the race. Well, I mean, there was half the field, but yeah, you guys get the point about less than half was competitive and less than half finished on the lead lap at the end, despite there not really being a major accident the rest of the day. So yeah, I mean, I know they ran it over. But again, if the caution would have waved, they could have came to pit road that lap, worst case scenario, even if they had to start at the back of the line because they pitted when pit road was closed. They could have saved their race ending, after sitting through a 5-hour rain delay and only getting about 15 laps of racing in it. They ended up ultimately crashing out against that stunk. Denny Hamlin wins stage 1. He dominated the first 2 stages of the race, pretty much the entire race, because even in the final stage he dominated, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So Hamlin wins stage 1. The only incident in stage number 2 was Christopher Bell having a flat left rear tire. Came out of the pits, so I don't know if there was contact that led into him cutting a tire, or they just didn't have enough air pressure in it. I don't know, because it was very, very short after the pit stop. They were running 3x3. They were trying to get the racing in instead of the train racing at that point as we were getting closer to the end of stage 2, but unfortunately, it did not go according to plan, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got caught up in that as well. He was my preseason prediction to win the Daytona 500 back before the season even started, before Speed Week started. So, tough break there. He was still in it. He made it through that crash. Just like, maybe he can get it done, because the JTG Doherty cars look really fast all week. But unfortunately, Stenhouse caught up in it, and Denny Hamlin goes on to win stage 2. Denny Hamlin, throughout the course of the race, led so many laps today, and of course his career in the Daytona 500, that he is now 4th all-time in the Daytona 500 in laps led, and he's still got at least a few more good years left in him, I think. At least with super speedways he should, with how good he is at Daytona and Talladega. I think it'll be a lot of fun to see if he can break that record. I don't know what it is. I'd have to look it up. Petty probably has it. It's probably not even reachable, but that'd be kind of a cool, monumental moment. And it looked like for a moment, and for a large part of the race, he was going to win 3 in a row. We get into stage 3, and Joey Logano cycles to the lead with 25 laps to go after green flag pit stops. The lack of Toyotas really hurt here. You saw it in the dual race. I forget which one. It was dual race number 1, because Ty Dillon was in that race. It was dual race number 1 on Thursday night, where the same thing happened. There were only 3 Toyotas to pick from, or 3 Toyotas, and you saw it even earlier in the race in stage 2 during green flag stops, where they come down, they just don't have enough cars to maintain that much speed in the draft. Now, it also didn't help that they were more spaced out this time than what they were in stage 2, so they caught them even quicker, and instead of being able to charge back to the front like Hamlin did at the end of stage 2 and those closing laps, he could not do it this time around because he didn't have the help. They were staying in a single file train line from the time they cycled out of the pits. Pretty much the entire final stage, they were in a train line on the outside of the racetrack until about a lap and a half, a little bit less than a lap and a half to go. Going into turn 3 with 2 laps to go is when Keselowski made the first move of the race. Also, Bubba Wallace during those pit stops had to come back down to pit road, so they went from a 3-car draft to a 2-car draft, and they were spaced out, so it wasn't even like they were drafting together. Tough break for Bubba Wallace, 22 laps left. He had a vibration after the pit stops. They did not get all the lug nuts tight on that car or on it at all, and had to bring it down to pit road, and that killed his chances of winning the Daytona 500 ultimately. The final couple laps of the race, again, Keselowski went to make the move, made a great move to jump down. He made an even better move to jump in front of the 4 of Harvick, so that way, I guess it was McDowell, because McDowell slid ahead of Harvick as well. Harvick kind of got hung out to dry coming into the tri-oval, but Keselowski was going to make a move to win the race no matter what. He has never won this race before. If he was going to get the run, he was going to take it. He was holding back, made the move on Harvick, and then he was going to do the same thing with Logano on the final lap down the back straightaway. He was getting a massive push from Michael McDowell, and about the same thing you saw trigger on lap 15, you saw trigger at the very last lap of the race, where just like when Bell was getting a massive push from Kyle Busch and just didn't hit the car in front of him square, now obviously Keselowski is actually going to make the pass instead of trying to hit the back bumper of Logano and just keep drafting him. He's going for the win. It's the final lap of the Daytona 500. You're not told to lift. Logano makes a block. I don't fault Logano for making the block like people were doing on social media. Some people in my comment sections on streams and stuff from yesterday also said that, oh, Logano did it again. You're trying to win the Daytona 500. And it wasn't like he blocked once and blocked twice. Logano made one move. So you can't fault Joey Logano for that. He made one move to the inside. Keselowski, even if I don't think he lifted, but even if he did lift, I don't think it was enough to stop it. That was an even bigger run than what Christopher Bell had earlier in the race when that triggered that crash. And because he didn't hit the 22 square, the 22 loses control. Brad lost control too. And the 34 basically took out both Penske cars to win the Daytona 500. He made it through the carnage, split right in between them. That was really cool. Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, they were racing back to the line, but the caution came out prematurely. Good move by NASCAR to throw the caution that instance because it was a fiery crash. Keselowski ended up in the catch fence in turn 3. In fact, the rear of his car ended up in the catch fence. There was pieces of debris in the fence itself as well. Big hit from Kyle Busch. They had to throw the caution immediately. So good timing on that. Unfortunately, they couldn't race back to the line, even though they probably had less than a mile to go. But it was a big enough of a crash. See, that's the thing. It's like, I'm fine with them racing back to the green if it's, not hard hits and they're not, if there's no hard hits and barely any drivers involved and they're just kind of spinning, like 2 to 3 drivers at most is probably what I'd go for, and they don't really hit anybody or anything. They make it through the carnage, let them race back on the final lap, as long as obviously they're clearing out of the way coming to the checker flag. But at the same time, this was more than that. There was probably at least 6 or 7 cars, if not more, involved, and it was a lot of hard hits. There was like 3 or 4 drivers that took very hard hits in that. And Michael McDowell, after 14 years of being in the Cup Series, wins his first career race. It really, really, to me, I don't know. It's almost Derek Cope-like, as far as at that point in time, Cope didn't win a race. That was his first career win in '89, but he was running part-time for a lot of those. Like, McDowell's been running full-time in the Cup Series for a while now, at least since he got to Levine Family Racing, I think was the first full-time year he had, and I don't even know if he qualified for every race in there. I have to go on Racing Reference for that. But yeah, Michael McDowell, kudos to McDowell winning. I actually had chills. It was fun at the end, even though they were running single file, because you knew the move was going to be made. It's the 500, and why they waited to the last lap, I don't know. You see it time and time again. Whenever there is these kinds of train races for most of the day, why do you not see moves until the last lap of the race? It mind boggles me, because if you're running outside the top 4, you're not going to be able to get there on the last lap. Because if you're coming from 5th, and even if you get another guy to move down in front of you, or you take the run to the inside, that gives the leader 3 to 4 car lengths, notice, okay, they're coming on the inside, it's going to be an easy move to block for Logano. Luckily, Brad didn't go right at the white flag. He went coming to it. I think that was a smart move because he would have anticipated Logano to go at the white flag, and knowing Joey is a good blocker, or at least tries to block a lot, maybe not successful all the time, but he knew he was going to make that move, and you can't blame either one of those 2 drivers. Honestly, the most blame would probably be McDowell, but I wouldn't even blame him. It's a racing accident. Nobody's going to lift on the final lap of the Daytona 500. We saw that in 2018 with Austin Dillon and Eric Almirola. It was a racing deal. If there was someone to blame, it might be Michael McDowell for giving that push, but much like Kyle Busch earlier with the taller rear spoilers, you can't see anything from that second car back. You don't know how close Keselowski is to the bumper, and Keselowski pulled out of line. So all McDowell knew was that Keselowski is on the inside of Logano, and not into the back of him, and you're going to continue to push him, and then you're going to try to make a move at the finish. So yeah, no one to blame there. Racing accident. It's super speedway racing. And Michael McDowell, first career win. Great to see. I kind of had chills in his post race because I'm like, Michael McDowell won the Daytona. Like, it was slowly processing in my brain, like, Michael McDowell is the Daytona 500 champion. So definitely, this race will be remembered for him winning and not the train racing. So that's good. And why was there train racing? It's mainly because of the big crash earlier in the race. And you did see some racing throughout, particularly at the end of the stages, the last like 2 to 3 laps of the stages. You saw guys going for it. And that's what doesn't make any sense to me, is that you were seeing moves made at the end of the stages with like 3 or 4 laps left in the stage and not on the last lap. And that's the time you need to go, because that is a possibility. You can be in 10th place and like easily work your way to the front. And that's what Hamlin was kind of talking about in his post-race interview. He's like, we just waited too long and there just wasn't a chance for me. He was like, I was trying to go, but nobody would go. And you see that time and time and time again. And with this package in particular, you would think it'd be easier to make those runs to go earlier. So yeah, it was very mind-boggling for sure. But Michael McDowell's a Daytona 500 champion. All in all, I think it was an average race. And the only reason I'd say it's a slightly above average race is just because it's a Daytona 500. And because it was the Daytona 500, that's why I was having, slight chills in the last 10 laps of the race, even though they were single file, because I'm like, when is the move going to be made? I'm like, because there is going to be a move made. Even if it's the last lap and they wait too long, there's going to be a move made. Is Logano going to win this race? And one of my friends that I've talked about before on the channel is a Logano fan since I got him into NASCAR in 2018. He was like, dude, I'm on the edge of my seat. We were texting each other those final 25 laps, and I'm like, dude, Joey's in the lead. And he's like, I know. And he was only been a fan since 2018, so yeah, he saw his championship, but he didn't get to witness Logano win the 500 in 2015, so he was definitely there, and he was kind of ticked off at the end. But it was a racing deal. Alright, so here is a look at my fantasy team. Of course, with the must-haves, you guys already automatically know 2 drivers that are on my fantasy team, and that was Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin. And my pick to win the race was obviously on my fantasy team, and that was Aric Almirola. Top break for Almirola. Blaney again caught up in that early accident. Bubba Wallace had a good day, as I kind of expected. Logano looked good in the duel, so I expected him to run up front. He was leading coming to the white flag. Denny Hamlin had the best car, scored the most points throughout the course of the race, had a 5th place finish at the end of the day, won the first 2 stages, so he was a good scorer on the fantasy team also. William Byron taken out in that first wreck. I had him on the team. Even though he started at the rear, that was my only concern with taking him, but I really didn't know who to take in his place, so that's why I went with Byron anyway. It was like, okay, he's starting at the back, maybe he hangs out there, but no, he tried to work his way forward, and when he did, there was a crash in front of him, and he couldn't miss it, so very unfortunate there for sure. And as far as the bonus points go, I did get a couple. I got it for Ford winning because I predicted Almirola to win, and I predicted Denny Hamlin to be the top finisher for Toyota, and he was. So I did get 15 bonus points there, but not a whole lot. That was it. And yeah, I don't think anybody predicted Michael McDowell to win this race, that is for sure. But now we'll take a look, and I'll announce who the winner was for this week's Daytona 500 in the Fantasy League. All right, here is the lineup for the 9 entries we had for this week. Again, you could join at any point this season, even if your points don't carry all the way for the season-end championship. If you join, you have a chance to win this prize. P-Shat Motorsports was the winner, scoring 198 points this week, and really it wasn't even close at the end of the race, so he probably had a bunch of drivers that made it through that crash. That was my downfall, is the fact that I had 3 drivers if you count my garage driver, so I was limited to only 10 points combined between Ryan Blaney and William Byron. That really cost me, because outside of that, the other 3 drivers I had scored a lot of stage points and ran up front for most of the end of the race, but I scored 150. It's Daytona or Talladega, so I'm not too worried about it as far as I'm losing my touch with the Fantasy League, because that's not the case. I trust myself in my picks every week, but Daytona and Talladega, Like, I look at Talladega last year in the spring, and I had literally 1 through 5 finished in the top 5, and I almost won the $10,000. And then you have the instance, like the other 3 super speedway races where I just didn't score good at all because my drivers didn't make it through the carnage, and that's pretty much the luck of the draw at Daytona and Talladega. But P-Chat Motorsports wins. I believe that is Patrick Shadley on the channel for those of you that see him in the chat room and the streams and stuff. He is a regular member of the channel, so good to see you right there. So Patrick, if you are available at any point in time, we will link up with email at the end of the week, and you will get to be featured on the predictions episode for the Daytona Road Course next weekend. Thanks everybody for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content, and I will see you next time.